Hey, this is draffet in this draffet store. For this week, we're going to do human ignorance. And I have some reasons behind this one. Uh, but human ignorance is, one of those things that we tend to overlook. We point it out in ignorance in other people, but we rarely look at our own ignorance. All right. Now, what I mean by that is, I've had some issues in the past with work because of something that happened a way long time ago, which I found out what caused the problem. Okay, was that I'm caffeine intolerant to a certain level, and certain supplements I was taking to keep myself awake. When I was working a midnight shift, caused me some issues. I didn't find this out until about 5 or 6 years later. I had thought I'd went through a nervous breakdown, which wasn't the case. It was okay. Like I said, 5 or 6 years later, I found out what caused it. But in some since then, I've ended up running into people at certain jobs. So most through when I had to work through temp services that knew me either back then or from certain actions I did, thought they knew and understood what type of person I am. Well, here's my thing. That's part of what this one's on, and why I'm doing ignorance. Because we as a species are ignorant as fuck. No matter how intelligent, and sometimes the more intelligent, the more ignorant we are. More experienced, sometimes the more ignorant we are. And what I mean by that is, now with experience, it's a case of most of the people that get the experience forget what it's like at the bottom to work their way up. So they're looking from their first experience level, 20 years, 15 years, whatever the case is, to somebody that's maybe not done it ever. And you go, well, I learned it this fast, why can't you? Well, human ignorance. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different learning potential, learning rate, speed, whatever. Now, most people don't understand. Most normal people, by what I mean by that, most of the blue collar workers I've run into. Now, occasionally I will get a few that actually have common sense and understand what I'm talking about. Other times I'll run into somebody that thinks that they're smart and they're just ignorant. And maybe ignorance goes across the whole, like I said, across the whole board. I mean, you got to have the ignorance for the laws, ignorance on what your spouse or your children are actually doing, ignorance on what co-workers or your supervisor is doing so you don't get in trouble. But here's the thing. If you don't know what a person is about, my personal or the situation's about, I look at it like this. Ask the person. If you have an issue with them or you don't like the way they are saying or doing something, or somebody comes up to ask you or tells you, oh yeah, I know this guy. Yeah, he's whatever. Find out. Don't do the one-sided grapevine thing. Okay? Listen, take in what the person says, then go make your own assessment. Don't be stupid about it. Okay, like I said, this has hurt me numerous times at numerous jobs, and maybe it's just the way I come off to people. I mean, it could be my own personal ignorance. But here's my take on it. I'm looking on it from the inside out, so even if somebody's reacting, I can't to an action of mine or acting on an action of mine, I can't go and I don't want to go and change mine. Not because I don't want to, it's because I don't know if the person's doing it to play games or if they're being serious. So it's better for me as a human being just to take it as it is. Don't take the hit to me emotionally, and just go on about what I'm doing, because I've spent too much time doing that. All right, worrying about what other people are thinking. Now I've got a daughter to worry about, and personally, I'm thinking more about her life than my own now. But getting back to the ignorance thing, I mean, it goes across the whole board. Whether it's the ignorance on 9/11, ignorance on human ignorance on what science has actually brought to the table and what it actually hasn't. Like a lot of people will say, "Oh, so, because of all the tech and everything that we've got, that we seem to know everything." And just because we've got a whole lot of tech and we can do a lot of scientific tricks doesn't mean we have all the answers. Now I was discussing this with a buddy of mine, and the best way to put this: normal human beings, when dealing with stuff, are like this. 100 years ago, we'll go like 110 years ago, the only type of flight we had was balloons or blimps. Then the Wright brothers created the airplane, and voila, now we can fly another thing. But if you were to say that I think that there was it's possible for us to do something, else flight-wise, you would have hit the ignorance wall of somebody saying, "Oh no, it's not possible." Okay, then you take it the one step further. "I think we can fly faster than this." "Oh, it's not possible." And then our science proved it. Well, now getting back to science, we have a whole lot of people who think that science has all the answers. And if you talk to any real scientist, they'll tell you, no, we don't have all the answers, because every time we find answer a question with an answer, we end up having 10 or 15 more questions on why this happened, why that happened, what's the reaction for this. Like I was getting back to what I was talking to my friend. The only way that science is going to have all the answers is when we stop creating anything, whether it's chemicals, on technology, or whatever. Then we will have all the answers. Now, like I said, we are an ignorant species, and it's ingrained. And I mean, it goes from redneck up to rich, dumbass white person. Okay, it ranges from what you city boys doing down here to why are you up in our town? We don't need you here. Kind of bullshit. Okay. Lack of understanding of what one social status does, lack of understanding what one race does, or lack of what a religion does. That's all human ignorance. Okay. Now the way you combat that is actually by learning and keeping an open mind all the time. Now what I mean by that is, do like you were when you were a kid. Okay. We kept, as an adults, we take our experiences for granted. What I mean by that is, every time we get hurt, we do this. The next time we go into a situation, we're a little bit leery. But as a kid, we weren't. We'd fall down, get back up, run, fall down, get back up, not worrying about if we got hurt, if we didn't. But because of our experiences and then the ignorance they brought, we know that now, well, I can get burned here, I can do this, I can do that. And with an open mind, looking at things from an open perspective, and looking at things from, and now I don't practice this fully, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, so it's not one of those practices I preached. This is a disclaimer. You need to get back up on the horse, as the saying goes, and keep riding on. And I know sometimes it's real hard to do that. I mean, my personal experience, I stopped dating and created a whole bunch of stuff because, I had, issues with how my relationships went. And I put it all the blame on myself. So then I wanted to work on my financial and emotional stability. Well, Now I'm married, I have a kid. I still worry about my financial. I don't worry about my emotional so much because I'm always thinking about my daughter. Okay. Now, but that's how ignorance is in, whether it's, like I said, ignorance of the law. It's example of this is we had a case here where that went to the Michigan Supreme Court about 10, 12 years ago about a guy where here in Michigan it's illegal to say fuck in front of children and old people and old women. Well, the Michigan Supreme Court said, held it up in favor of the police over the individual that did this. Now, if he would have pressed further, there's a good chance if he went to the Supreme Court, they would have overturned the Michigan court. Now, my personal take is that most people don't understand how things are with the Constitution at all. When it says freedom of speech, okay, we take it on a social level, which is an ignorance, because it is written freedom of speech. It means that I can say hate speech, I can say positive speech, I can swear or whatever. Okay, it's up to my discretion to use to what I say. But we have so many people with their ignorance that try to stop other people from using their freedom of speech, whether it's hateful, spiteful, or positive. Now, I mean, this is actually one of those things that I can go on and on and on for the better part of 2 hours, so I'm going to keep it short. But pretty much what we need to do, we need to open our minds to not so much to what other people have to say, but how to learn how to, as an individual, to stop being ignorant and pay attention to our own ignorance. Whether it's ignorance based on race, religions, whatever. Okay, me myself, I understand that I can be ignorant at times. Okay, that is the first step to being truthful to oneself, understanding where your faults are, your ignorances are, and what you're capable of and not capable of. Okay, and that's what everybody needs to do, but unfortunately not everybody does. So next week it's going to be like this week. I'm just going to, whatever is on my mind or whatever affects me at work or my personal life, I will go through and discuss it. With that, this is Draffet, and it's Draft Store. Have fun.